You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters, with thanks to Wexford Insurances. Wexford Insurances. More information at wexfordinsurance.com.
I'm joined now by Liam Griffin, Managing Director of the Griffin Hotel Group. Thank you for joining me today, Liam.
No problem, Karl.
Liam, if we start off by looking at the current government, do you think that our current government have the skill set to lead us out of this recession?
You see, the trouble when you make a comment like this is it becomes very personal, and I don't want to be personal, but the fact is, to be an elected politician and to get to the very top in politics is you require one set of skills, but to then govern and to take hard decisions, you need another set of skills. And based on what's happened today, you'd have to say that the skill sets of the people there are not skill sets conducive to doing this, to leading us out of it, because again, it's not their fault in some respects, because they're victims of the circumstances. We've put ourselves into straitjackets, and I've said it before on radio, we've made ourselves dysfunctional in many respects because we put in so much restriction and so much all sorts of hard rules. And it's interesting when you see the hard rules for some people and no rules for others, that we put in all of these structures in place, and it's very hard to break them. I accept that, but it's very hard to rationalise why somebody should have said contracted conditions which are beyond belief in this economy, particularly people at the very top in the public sector and at the very top in politics, while an ordinary regular citizen doesn't have any protection like that.
What do you think the right skill set is for our politicians to have?
I think you need a background, and you need to have an understanding. Politics is business, and business drives economies. Also public relations skills obviously becomes a very important part for politicians. But the hard core of business is that you must manage, and the answer is a very famous businessman wrote the words "management must manage," which seems so simple. But if you don't have the management training to manage in a particular area, for example, I'm into sport. You wouldn't pick a guy from left full back in soccer to play right full back in a hurling match.
On the point of management, if you were in Enda Kenny's position today, what would you be doing differently?
If I was in Enda Kenny's position, I'd be trying to make decisions that the self has to go out the window and the party has to go out the window at this point in time. Now, that's very, very simplistic for a fellow to say that's not involved in politics. But it seems to me that protection of the self and the protection of the individual party supersedes the protection of the citizen. So is the decision in the best interest of the citizen, or is it in the best interest of keeping the party in power? And the answer is that decisions are, if I was there, I'd try to make decisions based on, is this good for the people, not whether it's good for me or good for the party. And I think too many we're asking we're asking the right question, but we're coming up then with an answer from a different position.
For more of a focus on County Wexford, where do you think the opportunities are for job creation?
Well, there's a massive interest has been taken in exports, and the government have taken a big interest in exports, and that's a good idea. They've also taken a big the whole financial services sector is preoccupied them, and that's not a bad idea at all. The domestic economy has been absolutely let wither on the vine, and that's not a good idea. And if exports fail and if inflation rises, exports will fail. But I do think that one of the things that we need to start doing is making stuff again. We don't make things anymore. I mean, we don't make real things. The financial services are trading paper, but we need to start making real items. For example, Glendinplex are one of the most successful electrical companies in the world, and they're Irish, but most of their stuff is all made overseas. And I heard Sean O'Driscoll speak one day, and he's been one of the bosses at Glendinplex, and he said, we're making stuff in Liverpool, but we're not making it in Ireland. So why aren't we making it in Ireland? Our cost base was far too high. And the idea is people have a responsibility about a cost base. For example, if the cost base and the cost base of labour is way more than your opposition, or way more than in Britain. Now, we've then brought up all of the costs base for the private person as well. So you could equally argue, we have to get that because we're paying so much. So we actually exploded the cost base for so long. It's coming down, but we need to get it come down more on the cost base side, and then we need to start making things that we can actually sell, either to replace existing products or to export out of the country at a reasonable rate. And I think we went into the high tech is all the big thing, and that's a good idea, and the financial services. We've never looked at just making stuff and just trying to export it out of the country or sell it to ourselves and replace imports.
What are your thoughts on trade unions, because they've had a huge part to play in relation to raising the minimum wage over the last number of years?
I think the trade union movement in principle is a very good idea. What's wrong with it? But I have to say that the trade union movement and the whole have abused the system beyond belief. At the top of the system where we went in to do social partnership, and here I'd have a go at Father Sean Healy, who I know, who worries about the poor. Now, Father Sean Healy sat at the minimum wage talks. I wasn't sitting at him, and I can't understand why he continues to complain about the poor when he didn't stand up and say, by the way, now that we're doing all this, what's your wages? Around the table and ask everybody what their wages were. And if he went around that table, he would have found the top of business paying themselves a fortune. He'd have found the top of the trade union movement paying themselves a fortune. And he'd have found that everybody around the table was getting good money. And then all sorts would come out to worry about the poor. That strikes me as just PR. Why did that happen? Social partnership has been a disaster, has not worked. The principle was good, but it became totally abused. When you see trade unionists walking away at the top level with the kind of money, and when you see 2.5 million going into Visipto that no one knows where it's gone, that's absurd. Now, the ordinary regular union members out there, they always feel that if you're standing against the union, you're betraying them. They've been betrayed by the top. They've been overpaying themselves at the very top, and that's a fact. And the ordinary people on the ground haven't been.
What are your thoughts on social welfare payments?
I wouldn't be fully off with all the social welfare charges, but all I do know is that we're paying 20 billion euros a year out in social welfare, and that's not sustainable, and that's the problem that you have. There's certainly massive abuses of the social welfare system. I hear anecdotally from people. Don't worry, I live in rural Ireland. I know myself. I live in a village, and I know what's going on in it as well, as everybody else does. But who fears to speak is the problem. Who's going to stand up and speak about it? But we know. I heard a person saying the other day that she was, she had all the social welfare, and she was now living with a man, and he was getting the same deal, and then they all ring each other when they see somebody coming and he gets out the window. So that's absolute total abuse of the social welfare system, and that has to be curbed because somebody's been robbed to give those people what they're not due. So there's people abusing social welfare and there's people who deserve social welfare, and I can't judge unless it's an individual case. But there's no question there's savage abuse of it, as well as some people being badly treated by it.
In relation to rates, I know that's a serious bone of contention for you. What's your opinion on that?
I think that the whole rates issue is completely bankrupt. For example, we are expected to pay in our business between Manart, Ferrycarrig and Kilkenny up to €500,000 to local authorities in rates. How many ham sandwiches is that? It's certainly as far as Tory Island from here anyway, at least. And basically that is far too much. That's costing my people jobs. It's costing them the wage reductions. Everybody in our organisation has had to take a wage cut in the last number of years. But the rates bill is unsustainable, and it's very hard to justify when you see all of the comments about the local authorities that you read in the paper from time to time. When you see there was a report sitting on the minister's desk in June of 2-3 years ago, which said there was a 500 million saving available immediately within the local authority system, and that's still sitting on the minister's desk. In the meantime, people lose work, get short time, go on 3-day weeks, while we still try to pay that, because as far as the councillors are concerned, that's the totality of our bill and they can do nothing about it. I sympathise with the people who run the council. That's the legislation that's there. But there was a decision made in 3 individual counties that rates should come down by 30% in the hotel sector, as that's what their findings were at the time. And yet I've been told that in our hotel industry, rates can't be reviewed for another 10 years, despite the fact that in 2001, all rates were to be reviewed within 10 years, and now it's another 10 years. So you've been asked to sit there, pay the full bill, while you wait for someone to do a proper rates restructure. That's just not fair, it's not sustainable, and it's costing jobs. And that's one of the reasons why we're leaking jobs in the domestic economy. There's a lot bigger body of people out there capable of paying a smaller amount of rates that have a business of some description, and the rate system should be more fairly applied. And if it was, I think it would be more equitable, and it would mean that it would be fair for all, and at the moment it's certainly not. And I'd be very disappointed with Phil Hogan. I wrote to him 5 different times. Eventually I got a reply, because I've written to lots of politicians, but I got a reply eventually because Enda Kenny wrote to him and told him to write to me because I complained he wasn't writing. But the answer is just a pure PR job.
One of the major challenges facing your business today is that your main competition is Nama Hotels. How are you dealing with that?
We're dealing with it reasonably well, given the circumstances. But the whole Nama hotel situation, the biggest hotel group in Ireland at the moment are a group called Delata. And Delata run Whites and they run the Maldron. I know the fellow who runs it very well, Pat McCann, a very, very nice guy, decent guy, good background. But he's now under his control. He's got 4,000 bedrooms. And they are now the biggest hotel operators in Ireland. And the reason for all of that, there's a whole background to that. Now, the reason for that is they're running them on behalf of NAM, or on behalf of receivers. They're running them. So basically, that's a completely different set of circumstances. Lots of hotels that went into receivership didn't pay their local authority rates. Neither did lots of hotels in the NAMA situation that are in receivership didn't probably pay them as well. So they didn't pay, and they didn't pay the local butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. I have paid every single one of those people, like I paid the councils, right? So what's happened then is some people who haven't got paid have been told, we'll take you back in again. So what they've actually done is the people who are supplying have actually given debt forgiveness to them, and then they're going back in to supply them again. And in the meantime, local authority rates and things haven't been cost. So you could actually call that a grant aid from our business, because we're paying in full. So that's a grant aid from our business. So what's effectively happened is that we're actually grant aiding the people that are now competing with us, and the state are keeping them open. They're being called the zombie hotels as such, and the state are keeping them open. Does that affect the public? The public couldn't care less. They don't care. They'll walk in wherever. And you can't blame them. It's their shilling. So why they're entitled to spend it wherever you like. But it's totally grossly unfair competition. It's unprecedented anywhere in the world. Even in communist Russia, it's unprecedented. Because the state would own everyone's hotel. So the only answer to this to make it fair is either take over every hotel, and let the state own all the hotels, which wouldn't be necessarily good for Irish tourism, let me tell you, or leave the situation, resolve the situation. And there is no attempt to resolve the situation because, I say, the people who have invested in the hotel can't get their money back. But the other problem, which has never been discussed, is if the NAM hotels are sold for half their value, it's still a further grant aid against the existing businesses. Now, the hoteliers themselves, a lot of hoteliers have cut wages of staff, and we've had to do it. But at least I'm speaking out about it. Lots of fellas won't even keep their heads down and say nothing. And the problem is that we in the hotel industry, most of us, have kept our heads down to such an extent that the biggest contributor to the Irish Hotels Federation at the moment are the NAM hotels. So they are actually effectively the most serious players within the Irish Hotels Federation. So that's not a good idea. So it's unjust, it's unfair, totally unfair, and we're trying to cope with it as best we can, as are all sorts of private operators. But what's not known is our staffs are trying to cope with this because they've had to lose wages, and they've had lots of tough times for staff in all sorts of hotels. And the truth is that until such time as that's resolved, this is going to continue.
Liam, if you were given the task of job creation across County Wexford over the next 3 to 5 years, what would you do?
Be a very big job to do, but I'd hope to get lots of things going. Tourism, I think, is a massive one. I'm in tourism, so I know it best. Obviously, agriculture still, even though agriculture is doing well, there's still a lot more agriculture can do, and I think there's a massive demand. The name for Ireland in German is the Greener Insel, which is the Green Island. And, Ireland, that's the name of it. They don't call it Ireland, it's called the Green Island. So Ireland has a great name as a brand, and that's why it's doing well with export in agriculture. So I think agriculture, we should be trying everything in our power to keep growing the agricultural sector. It's very good. And then the agriculture sector should make its contribution back to the economy and complete employment and all the various things it can do. And I just think that if we could find some way of manufacturing, it would be a great idea if we could incentivise manufacturing. I understand that's a difficult job. Tourism is a foreign earning business. Tourism is very, very much an export industry. If we can bring in tourists into the country, they're bringing in their own cash and they're saving our taxpayers a lot of money. It's not seen as an export industry, but it is an actual export industry. And I think that brand Wexford is a big name, and I think we can grow the brand even stronger. But we do obviously need the domestic economy to pick up and the world economy to pick up a bit better. And we have a good infrastructure, and I think that tourism is something that we can concentrate even much further on. And our land bridge to Britain is obviously important between Rosslare and Fishguard and Rosslare in France. And possibly Ireland's out of favour a bit with the world at the moment, and I just think we need to rework and revision the brand. And I know that my own son Michael is involved in Tourism Council in Wexford, and lots of people are working at it, and I think they're trying to get their act together better and better and better. But something, events bring people nowadays, and the Wexford Opera Festival is a case in point. We need another festival based on the Opera Festival of some other form as well. I'm saying that, I know these people are exploring it, but we need festivals and events to happen in Wexford, and it's just about putting our imagination together. I had a suggestion which I made a few years ago, which at national level was like, they're talking about the gathering, bringing people back to Ireland. You could do a great cultural festival in Ireland between the All-Ireland hurling final and the All-Ireland football final. You could actually have a whole fortnight of Ireland comes home, because a lot of people want to come back to Ireland to go to matches. And why not pull in all of the various people at the top in the world's music? Why not book the likes of U2 or something in the middle of that and put a whole festival around the 2 All-Ireland hurling finals? That would be helpful to Ireland, and then you add on to there, you bring people down to Wexford, you try and add on to that by having, selling on to that whole notion of exploring the rest of Ireland. There's so many things we can do, but we need a lot of people with vision, and we need finance to do it, and we need a drive from the Irish Tourist Board to lead it. And unfortunately, the Irish Tourist Board, because of the Good Friday Agreement, is split in 3. And we've got Fáilte Ireland, Board Fáilte, and Tourism Ireland, and then we've regional authorities. And there's a lot of people administering 3 different systems. Whereas if we could put all our energies together into one, I think it would do an awful lot better focus. And I worked for Board Fáilte myself for a few years, so I have a working knowledge of it.
Liam, your enthusiasm is infectious. What keeps you motivated?
I love life. I love doing things. I love getting things done. I probably, if I had my life to live over, I might have done a few things differently. But I keep myself fit. I'm into sport. I keep myself involved with young people. I work with young people. I have great time for young people. I think there's some fantastically talented young people out there. And I think mixing with young people, keeping yourself fit and having enthusiasm for life generally is good for us all, and it's good for our country, for everybody.
Liam, thank you very much for joining me in this morning's programme.